You probably already know that Marjorie Taylor Greene is a terrible person. But this week, she really showed us. This week, we saw the horrific mass shooting at that elementary school in Nashville. So awful, it's really hard to put it into words. And yet, there were the people who have the power to actually protect 9-year-old children, those elected officials rushing to Twitter with their meaningless thoughts and prayers. And then there was Marjorie Taylor Greene. How many medications for mental illness was the shooter taking? And then our next discussion should be mental illness, drugs, and SSRI, because it can't be about guns, right? Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I should point out is a terrible person, does not care about the facts. She knows the truth. She just doesn't care because she just won't let the conversation be about guns.
She was mentally ill, probably taking hormones.
But the reality is, most mass shooters are not sick the way Marjorie Taylor Greene wants you to think they are. The FBI studied 63 active shooters between 2000 and 2013 and found, in light of the high lifetime prevalence of the symptoms of mental illness in the U.S. population, formally diagnosed mental illness is not a very specific predictor of violence of any type, let alone targeted violence. Some studies indicate that nearly half of the U.S. population experiences symptoms of mental illness over their lifetime, with population estimates of the lifetime prevalence of diagnosable mental illness among U.S. adults at 46%. In short, declarations that all active shooters must simply be mentally ill are misleading and unhelpful. And then there's this study, which concluded numerous public officials in recent years have pointed to mental illness as a simplified explanation for these terrifying acts of violence. The deranged shooter narrative resonates with a persistent, if largely false, belief among majorities of adults in the United States, the notion that people diagnosed with serious psychiatric disorders, such as schizophrenia, are likely or very likely to be violent. But who cares about the facts? Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene, a very terrible person, on Twitter saying this: "Thank God a good guy with a gun killed the evil, mentally deranged shooter today." The deranged shooter is a lie, and so is Marjorie Taylor Greene's insistence that somehow mass shootings can be tied to the drugs that people like me take for their mental illness.
It's always the same story for all of these mass shooters. They grow up in a bad home, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse. They also have a history of mental health problems, possibly drug abuse, SSRI usage, which causes and has side effects, and you can look it up and read it anywhere, suicide and homicidal thinking.
Now just think about that for a moment. If that were true, if there was a link between antidepressants and mass violence, why wouldn't we see it anywhere else in the world except right here? Because I got to tell you, I am not the only person taking antidepressants. Now, take a look at antidepressant use by country, and then take a look at mass shootings by country. Well, something about that math just doesn't add up. And that's because it is a lie. It's pill shaming, and it's using language to reinforce the myth that people with mental illness are somehow violent. We're talking about 1 in 5 Americans, people like me who are sick and tired of this garbage. And it comes from someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who could use her power to actually do something. Instead, she's going to throw people like me under the bus. She is a terrible person.